Lenny's Legacy is our charity that we set up in honour of our two sons, Lenny and Bhai, who sadly died in very different circumstances. Lenny as a newborn infant and Bhai halfway through pregnancy. And both were entirely unexpected.
We've met through adventure. We've always cycled together, and we started climbing when we first met, and we've done a lot of that stuff in the outdoors, and that's really important and an essence of who we are as people. And we would have wanted to instill that in the boys, and even at Lenny's funeral, Mim was saying we would want to instill a sense of adventure in the boys and honour the boys through adventure, and that's exactly what the whole New Zealand trip was about. The New Zealand adventure came about just after we lost Bhai in the July. Mim came up with the idea of going to New Zealand, doing something that's completely different, so we looked into it, and we thought about renting a camper van, but it was way too expensive. And then Mim said, how big is it? How long is New Zealand? I was like, well, it's about the size of the UK. So she said, let's cycle.
And I think as it kind of evolved from that original idea of just let's go to the Southern Hemisphere and not be around for Christmas and Lenny's birthday and Bhai's due date. And when it became the cycling trip that we were doing in honour of Lenny and Bhai, we've also made connections with hundreds of bereaved parents online, and we thought, let's do it in honour of their babies too. So on the one hand, it was like a sense of purpose and something to aim for, and on the other hand, it was about, let's put ourselves in this, let's throw ourselves into the deep end and see how we cope, because nothing can be as hard as what we've just dealt with. We've left our two children in a mortuary. What can be harder than that? What can life throw at us that is going to be worse than that?
Have we got the boys?
We've absolutely got the boys.
I think they've got us more than we've got them.
Yeah, the boys have got us. I think it's a very weird feeling. We don't want to be doing this. We should be parenting an 11-month-old. We should be welcoming a newborn baby boy, and it's heartbreaking that we're not. And but we're in the position that we're in, and
we're doing it for them.
And we're doing it for them, and we're doing it with them. And
we're doing it for all those other little babies.
Families and babies.
Let's go.
It was only when we arrived when I was like, oh, this is quite big. This is quite big what we've set out to do.
We put bags in a box.
So it wasn't really the anticipation before we went. I think it was arriving in the first few weeks where it was like, what are we doing? And we've told loads of people that we're doing it, and we're doing it for their children as well as ours. So no pressure, but you can't really just bow out of it.
The first day riding was just horrible. Literally, I was like riding along the road in Auckland when we just set off, and I was like, we can't do this. There's no chance.
I don't know whether I can do this. Genuinely, it's hard. It's pissing it down. Mim's just come off the bike. She's really scratched herself, and I really feel for her. It's just...
Okay, if I'm honest, I think I might have broken my finger. I think I have, but I can ride with it. I just feel like a flipping idiot. Imagine doing that on the first day.
There's no stopping you,
which
is
give up
good.
even when I should.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's that grit determination that you have is amazing.
About 6 months after we got married, I had a viral illness, and I developed a heart condition called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Pretty much every time I stood up, I would pass out. So my blood pressure was really low, my heart rate was really high. And it kind of ebbed and flowed, but at its worst, I was passing out at about 30 times a day. I used a wheelchair off and on for 5 years. All our active lifestyle that we'd built together and was the basis of our relationship was kind of out of the window, and we thought perhaps forever, really.
The next day the weather was a little better when we started riding, and it just felt a little bit different. And I think it's the same with the grief, is that you can be on that road where it's so heavy and it's so rainy and it's so, your grief weighs you so much, and then a few hours later, like, oh, actually things feel different.
I definitely think adventures can prepare you to face difficulties in your everyday life. We lost so much confidence when we lost Lenny and Bhai, kind of in the world and the universe and how it works, and it all seemed shaky and dangerous, but also in ourselves. And I can't stress enough how literally going to the shops or interacting with people just became really scary, and I've never really experienced anything like that before. And part of going to New Zealand was like, you cannot fix child loss. It's a huge, huge, devastating experience that shouldn't have happened, and it's unfixable. But most things that you encounter on an adventure are adaptable to, or they're fixable. And there was something about, yeah, we know we're going to face problems. We know that the bikes might break, and we know that we might go the wrong way, and we know that the weather might be bad. We didn't predict how bad.
It's quite a bit of rain. Great, just loving the rain yet again. Woohoo!
But we knew that it doesn't matter whether you plan it or not, and we'd not planned it too much because we wanted things to be fluid. We wanted things to be a bit unpredictable. We wanted to be able to go with people's recommendations and how we were feeling. But we knew that we could have planned it to the nth degree and things would have gone wrong, because that's life. But there was something about, yeah, things do go wrong in life, but most things that go wrong in life you can fix, you can adapt to, you can cope with. And it was kind of really proving to ourselves that you are resilient. Finding this really peaceful, just riding with the mountains in view, in the sunshine. It's just really freeing. Just arrived at this lake on the way to Franz Joseph. Let's go and see what it's like. Beautiful, absolutely stunning. Wow.
Meeting the Dutch couple was a pivotal moment.
It had just been us for weeks.
Yeah, because
we'd not seen anyone on a bike for weeks and weeks. We sat around talking, and I did have some moments where I was listening to the other 4 people that were there kind of talking about their lives. On surface level seemed quite straightforward compared to what we've experienced, and I was sort of thinking, what am I going to do if they ask me? And Andrea said, Mim, what's your story? And I said, well, we've got quite a long story. And she said, well, we've got time. And so I said, we had a little boy last December, and he died just after he was born. And she said, what was his name? And people very, very rarely respond like that. And she did it with such warmth and love and respect. and she didn't change the subject and she didn't shy away from it. Then I told her about Bhai, and she asked me about where we decided on their names, why we were doing the trip, and we ended up telling them about everything and about Lenny's legacy and about, you know, we had jerseys with Lenny and Bhai's mum on it and Lenny and Bhai's dad, and we showed them and it just was this really beautiful conversation with people we'd never met before in our lives. It was certainly the first time where I felt that somebody just didn't turn away and seemed to get that they're our boys and we love them.
Pass, summit, boom. Lenny's legacy. Brought Lenny and Bhai up here. Buzzing. How do you feel? Summited pass, well done. Oh, this is scrim and I stink like anything. But there's a distinct lack of fresh. But summited the pass.
There was something about moving forwards. So you never move on from your child's death, but there's something about moving forwards in grief and working through some really difficult emotions and some lighter emotions. And what our experience has been is that your feelings change very quickly, and there was something about that physical aspect, and there was something good sometimes about the real hard physical journey kind of matched the really hard emotions, and there was something cathartic about that, about working through it. We Everested 3.5 times. We're cycling 50 to 70k a day.
I just want you to introduce you to Mim. She's an absolute warrior of a woman.
Your feelings change so much emotionally when you're grieving, but then also that changes so much being on a bike. Like you're pedaling up a hill, it's really rainy or it's really hot, but then something changes, the weather changes or the terrain changes and things change like that, and how you feel in the morning, we're like, we can't complete this trip. And then a few hours later, oh, well, this feels great and we're made progress and things are different, and emotions always change with grief. People say, oh yeah, you know, all you need to do is take one day at a time. We talked a lot about this, is that can be really daunting, and you're like, why do I want to live my life? And I shouldn't have to live my life again one day at a time. But actually, we've really flipped that on its head, and living one day at a time is, in a lot of ways, liberating, in that you're just taking one little section. What can you get out of that? How can you progress within your life? What joy can you get? What emotions can you feel? And it was the same on the bike. We didn't have a plan of where we were going to go. We had an end point, but we were like, where do we want to go today? How far do we want to go? What do we feel like today? What goal do we want to reach? And we just kind of saw how it went, and that was really freeing.
I don't know whether you feel like this, but sometimes I feel like there's this dichotomy as a bereaved parent where on the one hand you feel completely broken, completely devastated, and then on the other hand you sometimes just think, well, I'm a superhero. Like, I have left a hospital twice without my babies. I've walked out of there. I've spoken at my son's funeral. I've faced all these unbearably painful things. Anything else, like cycling the length of New Zealand, so it kind of does give you that kind of, although on the one hand I'd lost so much confidence, on the other hand I kind of thought, nothing can be as hard as that ever again.
For me, the trip has told me that you can do things again. You can live a rich life that's full of emotion and joy and sadness, and you can honour your kids. adventure, challenge, and seeing the world and meeting people and building connections and having relationships, I can continue to do that. And the times before the trip where I felt like I didn't know whether that was possible.
The trip showed me that deep, deep sorrow and joy can coexist, and that it gave me some confidence that I don't know what the future holds, I don't know what life's going to look like, but it gave me confidence that we can face it and we'll face it together. And there's something really powerful about, you know, having spent 5 years in a wheelchair, having had 2 pregnancies, 2 childbirths, and being able to cycle up massive mountain passes and think, I can do this, and I can do things, and there's hope. And we don't know what the future looks like, and maybe we don't need to.